Let me ask you something. Would you be surprised to know that our wildlife is threatened every day by human-caused and environmental challenges? Nah, you wouldn't be surprised by that. But you might be surprised what it takes to actually rescue, rehabilitate, and release those animals. Well, you're in luck, because we're at the Sarvey Wildlife Center in Arlington today, and I'm going to take you behind the scenes so you can see for yourself what it takes to get this amazing job done. Follow me. I get the chance to see Suzanne and Barb again. It's been a long time. And I got to know you over the years, and I got to know this place, but tell us a little bit about it.
Well, Sarvey Wildlife Care Center started in 1981, and it's a wildlife hospital. And as a hospital, people don't get a chance to visit us. So our goal here is to give you guys a sort of tour today about what we do caring for the wildlife patients that come to us.
Okay, it's been a while since I've been here. You've been here since the beginning, Barb.
That's right, the very beginning. Yes, we got started at Silver Lake Veterinary Hospital. Dr. Yearout had a passion for wild animals, as I did. And so Dr. Roselle, who owns Silver Lake, he said that we could bring in wild animals and treat them at the clinic, but if it didn't interfere with Dr. Yearout seeing regular domestic animals. So that's how we got started.
So when did you all realize that this was turning into something way bigger than what you were expecting?
Well, because the phone calls coming in were just overwhelming. And so it almost took over Dr. Roselle's practice. And Kay Baxter was a client that came in and expressed a real interest in wildlife. Mm-hmm. And so as we progressed, we were lucky enough that Kay was able to buy some private property here, 5 acres. And so we moved out here.
Now we are in a place where there is an opportunity to bring an animal to a wildlife hospital, where we have the tools and the resources and the staff that have the experience to care for these animals. So, we really want to be able to show people what a unique profession this is.
And so, we just took in maybe 50 animals a year. And then the next year it was probably 300 animals, and that's how it progressed. And now, Suzanne, how many animals do we take in a year?
We treat over 3,000 animals annually, and that number's growing every year. We're seeing more and more patients coming in and more species. We took in 137 different species last year of both birds and mammals. We're a resource for the community, as a hospital would be a resource for the community. We're there for the animals, but we're also here for the people that find those animals because they don't have options.
Well, that was great. Now you know some of the history of this amazing place. Right now, let's have some fun. Let's go for a tour, meet the staff and the animals. How do you help people bring animals in here? What do you tell them?
Well, people call us up and sometimes they're seeing an animal in distress, and we know that that is what's happening. And so we give them tips on how to secure a small bird in a box, what have you. But then there's other times where we, have to intervene and maybe help them in a bigger sense and go out and rescue those animals. Oftentimes people don't recognize the fact that, there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just about providing that animal a place to stay in a cage and giving it food. It may need to be fed every 15 minutes. It may need to be fed, twice a day in a specific way that requires someone to use a feeding tube. if you don't know how to do that, you could actually cause a lot more harm, even if you're well-intentioned.
Okay, quiet everyone, because we're in a very special place, a sensitive place. As a reporter, I've been to this facility a half dozen times. Only once was I allowed back here. So you really are going to see something really special behind the scenes. We're talking quietly because there is a patient in this room, and there's the clinic manager, Jesse, and then there's Leslie, the veterinarian, who will be doing some work today on an actual patient. This is something very few people will ever get to see. So what are we going to be doing here, Jesse?
Well, Dr. Kovar, we had a red-tailed hawk come in. It's a baby. It came in 4 days ago. The people who found it saw it circling the tree for 2 days. So he came in a little dehydrated, a little skinny, and I just want to make sure that we didn't miss anything when he fell, so that I didn't miss any fractures or any bruising, any internal injuries. So if we can just take a nice exam on him, make sure he's healthy.
Okay, is he eating on his own?
He is. He's eating, he's creating casts, and his mutes are looking really good.
Oh, good. All right. Let's take a
So
look.
I'm gonna get him out.
Yeah.
Still has all of his blood feathers. He's not very vocal, but he is perching in his cage. So he's keeping his vent pretty clean.
And this is a red-tailed hawk.
This is a baby or a nestling red-tailed hawk. Yes. They're one of the most common hawks you'll see in the United States. Usually you see them on the telephone poles along the highway. Yeah. He might have had some of his blood feathers broken too, so there might be a little bit of blood on his outer metacarpals. So we'll just, and a lot of the times when these orphans come in, they'll have fly strike or like maggots maybe on them from their parents, not being with them to keep them clean.
What are you looking for, Dr. Kovar?
Oh, any kind of signs of injury, any kind of like plaques that could indicate infection. There's that slit in the roof of the mouth that's called the choanal slit, and that enters into their respiratory system.
So you can see his wings are very heavy right now because each one of those feathers is filled with blood.
How it's kind of blue, that's how the feather grows. There's a blood supply that recedes once it's mature size.
And Jesse, if this was the intake, what would be going on right now? Just basically this?
Exactly this. Yep, we would be checking to make sure that there was no blood from the mouth or coming from his vents. We would make sure that there were no fractures, no bruising, that his eyes are clean and clear. He's using both of his legs, his talons are intact, beak is intact. We feel his abdomen to make sure that there's no maybe subcutaneous blood or wounds there. And then we feel his chest, his keel. We also weigh them to make sure that they're, in a healthy weight.
Like he's a little thin.
Yeah.
Now, is he of an age that he can be released if everything works out here?
Yes, absolutely. We will definitely raise him up. We'll put him in bigger and bigger enclosures, and we will live prey him. So we'll give him live mice, make sure that he can hunt on his own. And when he's ready, we will definitely release him back into his territory where his parents were.
So Jesse, you're the clinic manager here at Sarvey, and that's what you're in charge of this area right here.
Correct, yes. I am a licensed wildlife rehabilitator and I'm the clinic manager here at Sarvey.
Rehabilitator, that's a good term. Are you seeing more and more injured and orphaned animals?
We get thousands of phone calls every year, and we're happy that people call us. Anytime you see an injured or orphaned animal, or you see a wild animal that you're just not sure, give us a call. That's what we're here for. And when we answer these phone calls, I know how scary it is to find an injured animal. I haven't always been doing this. So we're here to help you as much as the animal. We're here to help you understand what's normal, what's abnormal, and how to proceed if we feel the animal needs help.
And being here, what is the advantage of this clinical setting, and why is it important in keeping up with this ever-rising rate you're facing right now?
So it's so important that Sarvey is here and that we're a wildlife hospital. We see wild animals, maybe 130 different species a year, and each wild animal has parasites, has diseases, and these things can be spread to people or to other animals. So it's important that we have the tests to make sure that we know why the animal is sick, how to fix it, but also how to keep ourselves safe, those animals safe, and the rest of the patients safe.
So this huge variety of animals that come in here, how are you able to handle all of those different species?
It definitely takes years of training and years of education, continuing education. We're licensed by the state and the federal government, and that requires tests. They give us tests to make sure that we are knowledgeable on these species and all the diseases and habitat requirements and release requirements, everything that an animal could possibly need, we need to know. And that's a lot. So we do continue to go to national conferences. We get education as much as possible. We have plenty of references. We have veterinarians on board that help us. We contact and work with other rehabbers that might be more specialized in a certain species. And how we treat them is just like you would see at a veterinary hospital. We have anesthesia here. We do surgeries with our vet here. We have x-ray machines, blood testing machines. We test their fecals for parasites. We have lead testing machines. We wrap and splint and put shoes, boots on them, and all different types of things. So just like a real medical, almost hospital, is what we do here.
So a rehabilitator is part detective, part veterinarian. Right?
And part housekeeper, and part, we do it's laundry, dishes. You have to know the right diets to feed these animals. Each animal is very specific. I can't feed a finch what I would feed a robin, because one eats seed, one eats worms. You know, a possum's gonna eat something different than a squirrel, than a bunny. And so we have to be dietitians as well. You know, we have to be able to interpret x-rays. We have to be able to be a naturalist, because these animals hopefully will be released, and we need to make sure that we're putting them in the right habitat. So there's a lot of different hats that we have to wear when we're taking care of these animals. Yeah.
Providing these animals with the proper medications, vaccinations, and treatment from professionals, highly trained professionals. That's very important to giving all of these creatures another opportunity to go back into the wild. So we're here with one of the rehabilitators, Jonathan. Appreciate you joining us today. Where are we right now and what goes on in here?
So we're in our baby bird nursery right now. So pretty much we see a whole wide range of baby bird species, ranging from your little hummingbirds all the way up to your crows. Yeah, easily over 20 different species of birds at one time in this room.
And they don't all eat the same thing?
No, each bird has its own specific different diet. So if you think about it, you have, your birds that are going to be your frutivores, so they're only going to eat fruit. So that would be like your cedar waxwings and things like that, to where their main diet is not going to be necessarily mealworms. When you get in, like, let's say, you have your little finches and things like that, their main diet is going to be seed. So it's very important that we know the natural history of that animal so that we can appropriately give them the correct diet and nutritional values that they need.
I got the feeling this right here might be one of your most important tools.
Yes, definitely. So this right here just keeps track of all of our different patients that we have. So we have what enclosure, the species, how often we feed them, because we have someone in this room 12 hours every day, sometimes feeding animals as frequently as every 15 minutes.
Wow.
So it's very important that we have everything written on this chart so that we don't get confused, because we are human. So we want to make sure that we have something visual for us to keep an eye out. That way we're not forgetting any feeds, forgetting any patients, and things like that.
I'm with rehabilitator Kate. Hi, Kate.
Hi.
Thanks for having us in your area right here.
Yeah, of course.
What goes on in here?
So this is our baby mammal room. We take in mammals from the general public, orphaned, injured, cat caught, bunnies to possums to squirrels. We raise them in here until they're ready to go to bigger enclosures. We have incubators behind us all the way out to the flights outside, and then they're pre-released and released from there.
All right, well, you have one of your little rock stars here. This one is interesting. What do you got here?
So this is a baby possum, a Virginia possum specifically. You can hear him here. He's very vocal,
Yeah, he's telling you what's what.
but he's very cute. You have to be careful with their fingers. They like to grip onto things just like they grip onto mom.
Well, with mom out of the picture, how do you replicate what they eat, the diet?
So these guys don't suckle very well. I'm gonna keep my voice down because he's a little spooked. These guys don't suckle very well, so we have to tube feed them, or it's called gavaging. I have one there on the counter. So we'll take formula specifically made for Virginia possums, and we'll tube feed different frequencies and different amounts depending on the baby and even depending on the circumstances that the baby came into the clinic to begin with.
So I know that there are times that these come in from people who've been trying to help them and feed them baby formulas for maybe cats or dogs. How do you get them back onto their regular diet?
So it takes a lot of patience and a lot of know-how. We get a lot of information from the presenter that brings the baby in. How often have they been feeding? What kind of formula have they been feeding? If the baby has been kept warm. Those are all really important parts of kind of our triage of baby mammals and birds.
Kate, amazing. I love your friend.
He's pretty cool.
Yeah.
He's shy, but cool.
I appreciate it so much. Thanks. So I'm here with Amanda now, and again, I'm being shushed. I have to be quiet.
Yeah.
Where are we, and why is it important to be quiet?
So right now we're at our fawn field. This is where our fawns live until they're released. And we have to be really quiet and keep our voices low because they easily imprint. We don't want the fawns to associate talking and food with humans because it can get them into bad situations later when they get released.
Okay. And so you have methods of imprinting, and this is one of them with Jonathan here. Thank you, Jonathan, for modeling for us. So he's going to feed in disguise.
Yes, yeah. So we use these ghillie suits and ghillie masks to disguise ourselves so they don't associate humans with food. They kind of just, it makes us an indistinguishable shape. That way, when he does go into feed, he doesn't see a human's face and start to associate human faces with food. And we only use this method for like a week or two until we can get them on the bottle rack. We have a bottle rack in the fawn enclosure, and we just stick the bottles in, and they will go up to the bottle themselves and feed, so we don't have to constantly go in. Eventually we won't be going in at all, only to do a couple visual checks to make sure they're healthy and okay.
Suzanne, this is an incredible building. I cannot believe the difference between this and what you've built over the years and how important it is. What is so important about this capital project to build more flights like this one?
So in wildlife rehabilitation, there are specific criteria called minimum standards. And we have to build an enclosure that's appropriate for the species that we're actually trying to condition for release. So this cage was built for eagles and really large birds, like maybe even a swan could fly in here. We need to be able to assess how well that animal can fly. So for the older enclosures that we have, what we need to do is now rebuild in that same footprint of space that we have, cages that are now up to the current standards. The ones that we have are falling apart because they're just really old, and we want to improve the quality of the caging so that it's going to last for the next 40 years.
Well, what goes on in here? I mean, is this just all about assessing the bird's flight, or do they get exercise in here? Do they live in here?
Well, they wouldn't live in here permanently. This is, the whole goal is to release anything that is put into this enclosure. They are assessed for flight. So if you look at the very top of the enclosure, on both sides there's large perching, and then there's graduated perching. So depending on how well the animal's getting around, it might be slowly getting up to higher and higher perches. Maybe it's a fledgling, right? A young eagle that's learning how to fly. So we want to assess how well they fly from end to end. This cage, flight cage, is 100 feet long. So some of the other ones would only maybe be 20 feet or 30 feet, up to 50 feet. It depends on the species. And so what we want to do is to build several new flight cages for owls, for hawks, and accipiters, and different things like that.
Thank you for taking us to this beautiful spot. So this is where the outdoor enclosures are, some of them are in this area. Tell me about the outdoor enclosures and what they're designed to do.
So all of our outdoor enclosures are designed to kind of condition our animals for release. So that means there's high perches they can fly to, natural elements that help them get ready to be back out in the wild, to build muscle, to build the behaviors that they'll need to survive out there.
Okay, and obviously you're not in there with them a lot. You're letting them be alone.
Yeah, we typically only go into their cages twice a day.
How does the assessment process work when you decide, okay, that animal's ready to go be on its own?
So we're looking for all of the natural behaviors that they should show in the wild. Are they flying? Are they ambulating correctly? Are they finding their food that they need to? For birds of prey and things like that, we assess their hunting and then release them after they are able to show that they're able to hunt, fly, do everything that they should in the wild. A natural wariness of humans also we look for. We can't really release animals that are too used to humans.
You're doing everything you can. There's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, though, I imagine, right?
Yes, absolutely. And we try to do enrichment activities for them. So if a bird naturally forages on the ground, we might create a forage tray for them where we put mealworms or seed in dirt, so they learn that behavior of like foraging for their own food down on the ground.
Tell us about the releases of the larger species like coyotes and bobcats, bears, deer.
Yeah, so when we have a larger mammal that's going to be released, we work with the agencies like the Department of Fish and Wildlife here in Washington State to get guidance on where some of those animals should be placed, because we don't want to cause conflicts and put them into areas where they really shouldn't be.
For instance, what have you done with that?
Well, last year, our two bear cubs that we raised here and were released, they ended up with tracking collars. And so Fish and Wildlife can monitor where they're going. And then we also recently released a golden eagle that worked with a nonprofit out of Colorado that tracks eagles. They have a monitoring program, and they work with the departments all around the country, tracking the movement of specifically golden eagles that have been in rehabilitation. So she got a little backpack transmitter and a band on her leg. The transmitter will eventually fall off, but for now, we released her in Wenatchee in eastern Washington, which is kind of a known habitat for golden eagles. And within a matter of days, she'd traveled 800 miles into British Columbia, and she was on a fast track to Alaska. And within 2 weeks, she was up in a nature preserve in the Gulf, right near the Gulf of Alaska, which was really just amazing for us and really rewarding to see that she had the stamina and the ability to fly that far.
That is a beautiful wildlife moment.
Yeah. So those things are always really rewarding.
Well, that was something, wasn't it? Quite a time. We learned a lot about the rehabilitation of animals. People helping animals. What's better than that? We certainly want to thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful night.